Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Royal Instinct. Today, we are going to be diving deep into why social status helps society, why it plays a role in our society, and how we can use it in order for us to gain the things that we want. This is a video that we're breaking down by Rob Henderson, because I came across it. I thought it'd be an important topic to comment on. It'd be an important topic for us to discuss today. We are living in interesting time. We're living in times of crises all across the world. People are really losing faith in the systems that are in place which should, in theory, take care of them. The leaders that we have elected all are striving for status and power, and they are supposed to do good for the people that they govern. However, they have sold us out. They are selling us down the river. They are using their positions of power in order for them to gain status, in order for them to be seen, in order for them to live the lives that they want. Okay. And without really taking care of the people that have put them in those positions of power, without um you know taking care of the masses, right? They all are complicit in the things that are going wrong in the world today. Okay, I mean, all you gotta do is look at the war in Iran right now that is going on. It will have huge implications all across the globe. It should have been finished by now. It's been over a month, okay, and we are still in this war. Oil prices will be rising very, very quickly, which will have huge impacts on transportation costs. Your food prices will increase, and we already are living in a cost of living crisis, right? So many people are struggling right now, and this is only going to get worse and worse. Let's jump straight into this video.
A question that has long interested philosophers, psychologists: what motivates people? There are these phrases: follow the money, money is the root of all evil, money makes the world go round. But in this course,
Yeah, I mean, why do people want status? It's because, when you have status, when you have that type of authority over people, the money usually follows. Okay. And when you have money, you have real power because you have spending power. Okay. That is how people are controlled. I mean, why do people go to work? Okay. Many people are stuck in a job that they do not enjoy. Many people are stuck in work which is not fulfilling. They do it in order for them to survive, in order for them to live their life. However, with everything, with inflation out of control right now, with everything being more and more expensive every single day, many people can't even afford to live anymore. Okay, so they are just living to exist, right? They are not able to buy any luxuries for themselves. They are not able to enjoy their lives.
I'll be suggesting there's another overlooked incentive, and that is social status. Status is interesting because it lives in the minds of other people. You don't get to decide how much.
Yeah, I mean, status is determined by how you are perceived, okay? And that is why on this channel we are working towards becoming kings, because once you are king, you are perceived as a king, right? We do it by becoming subject matter experts, by living and fulfilling our life purpose, by being and doing the things that fulfill us, okay? We do not follow the trendy thing, we do not follow the crowd. We do what we were born to do, and we gain status through it, okay? By becoming points of authority, by being seen as experts. And once we are seen as experts, just like this guy Rob Henderson, okay, he is an expert in philosophy, in anthropology, okay, in psychological biology, right? He is somebody who is using his intellect, using his expertise to gain power, to gain status, to rise to the top, so that he is seen as an expert. Okay, and when you are seen as an expert, okay, people determine and defer to you for guidance. They look towards you to lead them and tell them and make sense of the current situation all across the world. They want a person to take charge. They want a leader to, in essence, submit to. Okay, they want somebody to guide them into the right direction, and that is the hack in the human brain. if you will, we use that power in order for us to be seen as points of authority. That is how we rise to the top. That is how we become subject matter experts. And once we do that, we go one step further than anybody else does. We go beyond it by crowning ourselves kings. And our goal is to establish kingdoms all across the world, all across the internet. And we buy private islands in order for us to build our kingdoms, so that when shit hits the fan, when the world is going to shit, that we offer a sanctuary for people, that people can come and join us to live within our kingdom walls. What am I doing here? Okay, I am here using the internet, the power of the internet, in order for me to find like-minded people who have the same beliefs as I do, people who have similar sort of philosophies and values. And we come together in order for us to establish our kingdoms, in order for us to come together and build 100 kingdoms. Okay, I'm looking for 100 kings to join me on this journey, right? And good people to come and join me on this journey, right? If you ever thought that you were supposed to do something with your life, that you were supposed to do something great in your existence, this is your moment. Okay, you get to decide whether you want to become somebody who is on their hero's journey, somebody who becomes a leader for people, because that is what the world lacks right now. They lack leaders. They need people to guide them, and that is what we are becoming. Okay, so the choice is yours. You get to decide whether you embark onto the hero's journey, whether the point of the film, we decide to do something about, the terrible things that you see in the world, or whether you just fade back into the background and become an NPC, a background character who never does anything or achieves anything in their life. And then you can't really have any complaints. Everybody has the same opportunity to become somebody, and this is your moment. Okay, whether you're going to take it or not is down to you. It is your decision. There may be self-doubt and fears holding you back right now. We overcome it here on this channel. We work through it. That is why I help my clients with overcoming their self-doubt. And once you are free of any self-doubt or fears, you are free to express yourself, to express your truth, to express your genius onto the world. Once you are rid of the things that are holding you back, you are free to express yourself, your full charisma and personality and insight onto the world. That is how we rise to the top. That is how we become kings on this channel. That is what we are all about. We are going to overthrow the evil elites at the top and become the new rulers of the world.
Status you had. I grew up in foster homes. I never even expected to go to college. My unusual life trajectory has naturally led me to become curious about what is status. Humans naturally pursue status with ferocity. Status undergirds so many of our decisions in life.
Your status determines your ranking in the world. Okay, and from the moment you're born, you're always kind of trying to figure out your place in the world, right? When you're born, you are a child. You are looking up to your parents, so you have low status, just by being born. Your parents are meant to be your guardians. They are meant to guide you and set you up in the world so that you can go on to achieve great things. But many of us have the wrong role models. Some parents don't know how to parent. Okay, and they sometimes, many a times, inflict their worst traits, their own insecurities onto their children, which breeds a whole generation of people who don't know what they're doing, who are lost. Okay, and in a time in the world where many of the leaders are telling you conflicting messages, you might be somebody who's looking around and being confused, because you don't know where to turn to, what to do, what the correct way to operate in these current circumstances. Okay, the internet is a new world, right? The internet is a new universe that we find ourselves in, right? And we here at Raw Instinct, we use the internet in order for us to establish kingdoms, in order for us to become points of authority. The way that we do it, like I said before, is by becoming subject matter experts, by expressing onto the world what we are good at, right? And the right people will come and find you, right? For all the haters in the world, the people who are trying to hold you back, there are similar people to you, and it is your duty to go out and find them. And the internet is a great tool for that, right? I'm here broadcasting my message, and every day I get like 5-6 people telling me to stop making these videos, to that I'm some sort of clown. They don't understand what it is that I'm doing, right? But I don't really give a shit. Okay, I am looking for the right people who really look past everything and understand at the fundamental level what it is that I'm doing, right? I'm here to bring together a unique group of people, okay, who we all crown ourselves kings in order for us to raise an army to take over the world, okay, to bring about new systems, to help humanity to the next phase of evolution, right? Because the current systems in place right now do not help us. They do not benefit us, right? They only benefit the already wealthy elites at the top, the billionaire technocrats, the evil governments, right? All you got to do is look at what the World Economic Forum is trying to do with its Agenda 2030. They want you locked up in a room. They want you isolated. They want you depressed so that you are easy to manipulate, so that you are easy to control. They want you within a 50-minute radius of your home, a 15-minute city, so that you cannot go out there and establish your own friendships, that you cannot establish your own connections within the world. They want to control every facet and have you locked up in your bedroom.
Often unknowingly, it's a resource as real as oxygen or water. We're chronically conflicted. We want to fit in and we want to stand out. We want status, but we also want to be accepted. We're constantly walking that sort of tightrope. Good morning. My name is Dr. Rob Henderson, and I'm the instructor for this course. So these lectures will be based on ideas I've been researching and thinking about and developing for several years now. And of course, I'll be drawing on the work of many other brilliant researchers. And
when you become somebody who is a king, when you become somebody who is seen as an expert, as a point of authority, you get to determine what the social status, the qualifying, aspects of social status become, right? So if you are somebody who is very fond of music, if you are driven by music as your life purpose, for example, you get to tell people, what to believe, how to conduct themselves, and what the right way to live life is, right? That many people are so lost right now. Many people are so depressed. They have lost all the hope. Okay. So they're looking for a figure, a father figure, a point of authority to lead them to a better world, right? Because many people are suffering right now. Many people are depressed. Many people don't have any way of, changing their lot in life, right? And that is where we come in. We fill that gap in order for us to show people the right way to live, that there is a new and alternative way to live. And because we, have that first move advantage, because we are taking that risk to put ourselves out there, it is only right that we get all the rewards that come with it. That is why we, are building kingdoms in order for us to determine what happens within our land, what happens within our society, a new way of life. And you won't be the only one doing it, right? I'm doing it alongside myself. You'll be alongside myself and the other 100 kings, who are forming the Royal Alliance of Kings that I'm building, the Amicis that I'm bringing together, real people, real friends who have your back, who understand you, who want to help you, a group of people where you can share your ideas to come up with new solutions, creative ideas, in order for us to give humanity the best possible chance to the next phase of evolution.
Scholars and their studies and their ideas. I received my PhD in psychology from Cambridge University last year.
He is deferring to the institution of Cambridge University, right? So he is somebody leaning on his expertise, because you might be somebody, oh, wow, like this guy went to Cambridge. Okay, so he must know what the fuck he's doing. Many a times, you only got to lick the right ass fucking, in order for yourself to do well in these institutions. He is somebody, I'm not saying he's not smart, but he is somebody who is playing the game himself. Okay, he's using the status of Cambridge in order for him to leverage, well, Cambridge is a really highly regarded institution, and because I'm a student of that institution, therefore by default I am also great, right? So he is playing the social status game in front of your eyes. He is using his own narrative building characteristics, saying that he grew up, he went through the foster care system, so it's this rags to rich story that he is trying to embed into your head, so that you build this narrative around him that he was destined to be a leader, right? It's a great way to do it, right? There's a great way to do it. However, go beyond, form your own kingdom, become a real leader, right? Not just a theoretical leader like Rob Henderson. Become somebody who is actually making a difference in the lives of people. That is what we are all about. We will change the world that we currently live in.
And one of the benefits of taking a course with a recent PhD graduate is that most of the studies I cite throughout these lectures will be recent. This is the latest stuff, the most cutting edge work. If you take courses with some senior professors, often you'll find that many of the references and studies that they cite will tend to cluster around a certain point early on in their career. Those are the findings that made the strongest impression on them. And I'm no different. I just finished. But in this
Just because something is cutting edge and the latest findings doesn't mean it's any more valuable than what the older findings were, right? Many times there's only like a slight difference in in increase in knowledge. However, there is something that you are good at, right? Wherever it may be, you need to find it, find your love purpose, go deep into it, okay? And you don't need a PhD from an institution like Cambridge or Oxford or Harvard, for example, right? You just need to, explore your own insight, your own truth, and showcase it to the world, right? Because the right people, the people who truly believe in what you are doing, who have similar sort of thoughts, will align with you. Okay, all you gotta do is just be able to find those people, and you have the resources and tools via the internet, right? I mean, I'm broadcasting here to find my 100 people to come together and form a new system, a new society with. That is what we're doing. We are going beyond the capabilities and using all technologies that we have to our disposal in order for us to establish our kingdoms.
case, it's an advantage. Much of the research I'll be discussing has been published after the wake of the replication crisis. How many of you are familiar with the psychology replication crisis? Any? Yeah, a few of you? Yeah. So that was quite a large disruption in several fields in psychology. But there have been many formal changes made that have improved the quality of research. Things like
So there was a crisis where many of the psychological findings in the last couple of years were questioned, where they weren't really offering any new insight, that they were just kind of rephrasing, regurgitating other people's points of view, and it led to many people kind of questioning the validity of these PhDs, of these papers that they were publishing. So again, even though these publications come from a valid institutions, there is a flawed system baked into it, where they are promoting the status quo, the things that the institution believes, right? Because there may be a finding, there may be something that you can come up with that is not believed by mainstream science yet. Okay. I mean, all we gotta do is look at conspiracy theories. Many conspiracy theorists, people who believed in those theories were, regarded as crazy, that didn't know what they were talking about. And then, a couple years later, Jeffrey Epstein, right? These things were coming true. Okay, that it was a elite network of pedophiles. That there was this guy peddling and trafficking women to to compromise high, high society people, people positions of power. Okay, politicians, celebrities, members of the royal family, in order to compromise them, in order to get them to do the bidding of Epstein and his friends, right? That was a conspiracy theory at one point. Now we all know it is true. So, you just got to be ahead of the curve. Okay? Don't be afraid to tell your truth, right? There is an audience for it. Are people who have and share similar sort of beliefs as you. It is just your responsibility to go out and find them.
Pre-registration, meaning you have to formally announce your hypotheses before you start the study, instead of finding a significant result and then sort of ex post facto rationalizing, oh, this is the finding we predicted all along. Larger sample sizes, better statistical methods, making the data public in our psychology. So what is the field of evolutionary psychology? There's a nice definition here from the evolutionary psychology professor Tanya Reynolds, a recent definition. She defined.
Again, this is a definition cherry-picked by him to serve his purposes, right? He could have picked any type of definition for evolutionary biology, psychology, but he is choosing the one that resonates with him. So again, this is his interpretation of his experience.
Defines evolutionary psychology as examining how the mind has been shaped to solve recurring problems faced by human ancestors. It contends that natural selection has produced mental adaptations that enhanced our ancestors' ability to survive and reproduce. It's important to remember here, a lot of people will sort of conflate environments when we say, this is what's advantageous for survival and reproduction. They think that it applies to the present moment, but it doesn't. Humans, we evolve more slow, or the environment evolves faster than we do. It's one way to think about it. So the way that
So if the environment evolves faster than humans do, right, then the technological advances that we are seeing right now, humans just can't keep up and evolve at the same pace as technology is increasing, right? And when you have technology that is coming in, such as AI, it will really disrupt how society is shaped, structured, and how people and humans will live, right? Because it will disrupt many people's jobs. It will really change the way we work. And this is an opportunity for the elites, the people at the top, to solidify and their power over people, over how society is structured. Okay, think about it. If you don't have a job, if you are reliant on the state to take care of you, to look after you, to ensure your survival, right, the state in essence owns you at that point, right? So that is why it is important to stay autonomous, to stay free. And this is why we're building kingdoms, so that they are free from any you know government or nation who will try to tell us what to do. We are, the system is broken. This is why I'm leaving the system. And many people are feeling frustrated, but they don't know where to go, where to turn to. This is why we are becoming kings and establishing our authority, so that people have somebody to come in and turn towards, to help them to achieve a life of freedom, to achieve a life of autonomy. That is what we are doing. That is how we are building our nations.
our minds and our bodies have been shaped. 300,000 years roughly of human evolution. This is roughly the sort of modern form of Homo sapiens. 300,000 years ago, we lived in mostly nomadic hunter-gatherer groups until about 10,000 years ago. And then with the agricultural revolution, we
Yeah, and right now we are living on the internet. Okay, we can all access the internet. We are all consuming content via the internet. Okay, the algorithms are dictating what you see, and they are trying to push brain rot content onto you. Okay, to keep you locked in onto these platforms, to keep you scrolling, to keep you and your attention away from thinking for yourself. Right, they are trying to weaken your resolve, in order to keep you controlled. Right, that is what the elites have in plan. That is what they're doing, and you have to understand the internet connects all humans all across the world who also have access to the internet, right? Together. And it is the Wild West right now. Okay, it is important for you to be seen as somebody on the internet, right? So that you can have power in the future. That is why we are building networks. That is why we are building our own expertise and to get followers, in order for us to establish our authority. And when we rise to power because of our authority, people will naturally look towards you to tell them what to do. So that is why it is important for you to get rid of any fears or self-doubts that are stopping you from doing this, right? Everybody has the opportunity, but it is your choice whether you decide to explore this, whether you decide to go on this journey to becoming a king, in order for you to live the life of luxury that people want.
stayed in sort of stationary areas where we grew food and formed villages and cities and so forth. But for most of our history, we lived in these small nomadic groups as hunter-gatherers. And that's where our psychology evolved, in the Pleistocene, in the ancestral environment, which I'll be describing throughout this course.
So we were designed to live in tribes of hunter-gatherers, but how far removed is the modern man from being a hunter-gatherer? Okay, we are, we're not even hunting, we're not even gathering, we are just literally sitting on the phone ordering Uber Eats, waiting for somebody to tell us what to do. We're very aware of what's going on in the world, okay, and that awareness is causing inaction in people. It is causing people to be worried, to to see what is going on in the world. Okay, they're more scared and less prepared to do anything about it, right? That is why it is important for you to gain control of your freedom, of your autonomy, to rise above the current situation that you find yourself in. That is why it's important that you establish yourself as a king, because if you don't do it, right, you have to ask yourself this question: if you don't do it, who the fuck will? Right? Who's going to take care of you? Who is going to tell you the correct way of doing, right? And in essence, nobody is. Nobody's come to save you. That is why it is important that you become somebody who is seen as an expert, somebody who is seen as a leader, okay, a hero, right? That is why it's important that you go on your hero's journey, okay? If you ever thought in your life that you were supposed to do something great, okay, that you were destined for glory, for something greater than what you are currently doing in your life, okay, this is your moment. I'm offering you a chance, okay? I'm offering you the opportunity to be seen as a hero, to be seen as a leader, to usher in a great phase for human evolution, okay? Because there is some knowledge that you have, some truth that you have, some way of helping people that only you can help them with, right? So it is important that you broadcast your message onto the world so that the right people can find you and that you can save them people.
That's where our minds are adapted for. So one way to think about it is a common example is food. So 20,000 years ago, if you had food, it was in your best interest to eat as much of it as possible because you don't know when you're going to see food again. If I mean, I saw this documentary of these hunter-gatherers, I think somewhere in Central America, and they were just sort of, I think they were on a hunt, and then they saw a beehive, and they immediately stopped everything. And like they grabbed that beehive, and like they had little like techniques down. It was amazing to see like how they were able to sort of evade getting stung and take this beehive down, and they just gorged themselves on this honey. And that's
the other thing you have to understand is if society was to fail, right, all these little skills of hunter-gatherers that is baked into our DNA, right? Like how the fuck would you get honey out of a beehive without getting stung, right? Many people have lost the knowledge that humans have were passed down from generation to generation. Okay, so many people won't be able to live in nomadic tribes anymore. So a lot of this, it's great to see where we came from, but you have to understand where we are going. Right, we are living in societies that are dictated by big government, by big tech companies. Okay, technocrats, these billionaires who and powerful people at the top who are making decisions on your behalf. Right, there are wars being started without your consultation. Right, nobody asked for a war to happen between China and Ukraine, Ukraine and Russia. That nobody asked for a war to happen between Israel and United States, but these conflicts are having a major impact all across the globe onto real people. Real people are suffering, right? So you know it is basically the people that we have elected to make decisions on our behalf don't have our best interest. Okay, they do not care about the people that they send out to war, the people that are getting killed unnecessarily. um, this is why we need a new class of leaders, a new class of people, of politicians who are taking a real interest in human lives, who want a world, made for humans, not to, just worship AI gods, not for a world where profit is the end all be all of things. Okay, a world where, very, very soon you're going to have AI technology, AI robots coming in, displacing a large majority of people in the labor market. Many people will lose their jobs. Many people will be displaced, and it is a time where there will be mass confusion, which is why we now have a short window of opportunity. In essence, kind of 4 years we've got left before Agenda 2030 takes this hold, a chokehold onto the world. For us to come in and to set up our the foundations of a kingdom in order for us to rise, to get to the top, to help the masses when shit hits the fan, so that we can offer a alternative solution for the betterment of humanity.
what you should do if you're in an environment where calories are scarce. But now, in the modern environment with an abundance of food, this natural adaptation to eat when high calorically dense food is available is perhaps maladaptive with the rise of obesity and associated health issues. Okay, so keep that in mind.
Obesity is the last fucking, problem that we have to worry about right now, okay? Because, you have Ozempic right now, a new technology to combat addiction to food in order for people's appetites to be quelled. Okay, many people are losing weight with it. What the long-term repercussions are of a drug like that, who knows right now? Okay, the studies haven't been made, right? But there will be something that comes along that is able to, in a healthy way, stop all your cravings. Because what does obesity mean, right? What does all these addictions mean? That humans can't be trusted, okay, to follow their instincts, right? That is why you have to delve deep and follow your royal instinct, okay, to seek power, to seek leadership, okay, to become the leader that the world needs, right? You need to consolidate power for yourself, okay? You need to become the leader that the world needs, because many people are lost. They can't control what they eat, they can't control their addictions, their own impulses. That is why we need the people who have that royal instinct within them to become the new leaders of the world, because they can make better judgments. And you're not going to be on your own. There's not going to be any tyrants, because there'll be a council of 100 kings that I'm bringing together. That is what I'm doing here. I want you to join me. If you understand what it is that I'm saying, if you understand what it is that I'm doing, if you want to be a part of it in any shape, way or form, let me know. We can work together. We can stop the rot that is happening in the world.
As we go through this course, when I say this is a mental adaptation or we evolved to do X, Y, Z, this is in the ancestral environment thousands of years ago, not in the modern environment 2023. Okay, so why do humans care about status? Well, humans evolved to pursue status because
Humans care about status because they are afraid. They're afraid of their ranking in the world, because they feel like they can't survive without the help of other people, which is true, especially when you were in hunter-gatherer type environments, okay, living in nomadic tribes. Well, right now, if you think about it, the loneliness crisis in the world, right, many people are isolated, many people are alone, yet they still work and function in society, okay? They still are living a life, right? Because the modern world, the modern structures right now that we have in place allow for you to be isolated and by yourself, okay? Because if you think about it, like, you don't need any friends, right? You can order any food that you want, right? The supermarket systems, right, delivery apps that you have, are going to bring food to you, okay? As long as you're paying your bills, you can survive by yourself, right? The depression and loneliness comes from the lack of contact that you have with people, because it is a very important aspect of humanity, right? But you don't need it, in essence, to live biologically, right? To eat, you might live a sad existence, but it's not going to stop you from living, okay? But we are going a step beyond that, because we recognize how important it is to form these connections, to form friendships, in order for you to live a happy and fulfilled life. That is why we are taking that risk, that first move advantage, to become kings. Because where else in the world can you go to live a happy life right now? Okay, I mean, people thought that Dubai was a safe haven, right? That was the new place to live, tax free, a very, very safe country to live in, right? But overnight, a month ago, that whole world got disrupted. And I don't think Dubai will ever recover. It's very unlikely. The reputation has been tarnished. Many people have fled that country now, okay, and I doubt that they will return. That is why you need to establish a kingdom that is outside of the jurisdiction, outside of any potential conflict and war zone, so that humans and the people that you care about, the people that you value, the people that you want to spend time with, can survive, and that you together can form a new nation, a new way of life for the modern world. That is what we are doing here on this channel.
At least to reproductive benefits. So reproductive benefits, this is the currency of evolution is offspring.
Yeah, and in the modern world, the way that is shaped right now, okay, there is a fertility crisis, especially in Western countries. People aren't having children. People aren't dating. People aren't having sex, right? Okay, the younger generations. That is why many of them are lost, because they don't know how to attract a partner. They don't know how to, live a happy life, to start their own families, right? That is why I'm telling you to become a king, because once you're seen as a king and many women see themselves as queens, it will be easy for you to attract a mate, okay? Because as a king, you have power, you have authority, and many women find that attractive. That is why we don't even play the dating game. We are going one step beyond. We are playing the king game, and women will line up to date you if you choose that path.
And so a lot of the motivations that humans have are associated with the attainment of attracting romantic partners, survival and reproduction, right? So securing allies, territory, resources, mates, but ultimately
exactly, and that is what we're doing. We're building allies, we are attracting mates, we are building nations in order for us to gain power, to gain the ultimate status. Okay, that is why we are kings on this channel. That is why we are building nations and building kingdoms in order for us to have the ultimate power. And once we have ultimate power, and once we are building nations and rising armies, we will overthrow the evil leads, the evil structures that have been put into place to lead humanity down the wrong path. We are the correct path. We are good people leading good men into a better world.
Currency is offspring. Reproduction is actually what evolution cares about, not actually survival. Survival is only important within an evolutionary framework insofar as it allows you to live long enough to reproduce. So there are traits, for example, that will actually be detrimental for your survival, but if it enhances or aids you on your path to reproduction, then the trait will actually proliferate. And in contrast, if there's a trait that will enhance your survival but damage your reproductive prospects, then your genes will not spread, and the trait will not proliferate within the population. So an example might be risk-taking. So risk-taking is actually a trait.
Yeah, and the way that we take risk is by making ourselves known and presenting our ideas onto the world via the internet, right? So that is why I want you to become a subject matter expert, because taking that risk, okay, the fear of judgment from people is stopping many people from giving their insight to the world, right? Many people have special talents, many people have things that they are good at, but they're too afraid to showcase them onto the world. That is why we are taking that risk to to show the world our expertise, our zone of genius, for us to gain authority so that we can rise to the top and be seen as points of authority. Don't be somebody who is held back by their fears or self-doubts. That is what I help them overcome, in order for them to establish their own authority, so that we can have more ideas flowing between ourselves, okay, coming up with new creative solutions to help humanity.
That can be very damaging to your survival if you take risks, and it increases your odds of death.
Yeah, we have to remember risk taking. What he's talking about is in a context of, living in hunter-gatherer times, right? That that you can be, if you try to gain status or overreach, your station, that the people who are in charge will kind of push you down. We live in a time where right now at least there is still freedom of speech across the globe, across the internet. So it is important for us to use those powers, okay, and not be afraid of any social repercussions, because what repercussions are there, right? Like, I mean, somebody will leave a negative comment on this video. Okay, great, fuck it. Like, I don't give a shit, right? I get negative comments every single day. But for every 5, 6 negative comments I get, right? Who are just idiot people that I don't want to ever meet in real life anyway. I'll always find one person who understands what it is that I'm trying to do, who understands the message, who wants to be a part of it, right? I'm always, every week I'm meeting new people, gaining more and more people who support me and want to be a part of what it is that I'm doing. They understand the message that I'm trying to convey here. And if you're somebody who is confused by what I'm saying, this channel is just not for you, right? And if you want to log off, great, fuck off, I don't give a shit, right? But there are people who really truly understand what it is I'm trying to do, and those are the people that I'm looking for, right? I'm only for 100 people in the sea of 10 billion people across the internet, right? And those people, they're waiting to talk to somebody like me, because they think and and have these similar sort of ideas and beliefs that I do, right? And likely we'll become very, very good friends. Likely we'll become very good business partners. We'll rise to the top. We'll build kingdoms. We'll be there side by side, ready to usher in a new great phase of human evolution.
Not good for survival, but if risk taking increases your access to certain kinds of resources, and ultimately impresses potential romantic partners, then you will find that this trait will spread. The genetic properties will spread throughout a population, and this will increase the likelihood of that person or those genes spreading. So, in contrast, if you have someone who's very preoccupied with survival, they have no interest in mating whatsoever. All they want to do is live to be 100 years old, not interested in romance, not interested in anything. They just want to do all they can to survive and avoid any kind of risk. I mean, that's great for that individual person, but it's bad for their genes. And so we are the descendants of people who cared about reproduction, not necessarily the people who cared about survival. Our ancestors had to walk that tightrope, right? They wanted to live long enough to reproduce. And that's where we came from. So, okay. We talked about that. Reproduction is what evolution cares about. We'll do things that enhance reproduction potential, not just at the expense of survival, but also at the expense of happiness. People will do things that sort of are good for their genes, but bad for themselves. We'll talk a bit more about this later.
I mean, the current state of things, how they are, many people choose comfort over glory, right? Many people want to just stay safe because they think, oh, at another time later on in the future, I'll do something great. So right now, let me just stay safe. Let me stay small. Let me stay hidden in order for me to survive, this current time. And then in the future, I'll come up with something great so that I can, make some money, make some wealth, make connections, gain status in the world, right? That window is closing very, very quickly. The elites at top are consolidating their power, their position in order for you to be manipulated to keep you small in a way so that they can stay in charge, them and their children in the future. That is why you need to make use of this window that you have right now in order for you to rise up, okay, for you to be seen as a leader. Don't be afraid, don't lament, okay, get rid of the self-doubt, unleash the genius that is hidden within you. That is what we're about. That is how we are going to, um release our raw instinct onto the world. That is why we are going to, build kingdoms so that we can be seen as the future ruling elites of the world. And because we are good people, because we understand the plight of men all across the world, it is us who's going to take care and be the leaders that the world needs right now.
But a lot of our emotions, guilt, shame, embarrassment, humiliation, these are terrible feelings, but they do serve an adaptive purpose. And for our ancestors, they serve the purpose of modifying our behavior to increase our appeal to potential romantic partners and ultimately increases the odds of having offspring. Greed, shame, envy, these kinds of things. These feelings tend to peak they tend to peak right at the age when we are most interested in mating. So a lot of our most intense emotions will be clustered in our teens and our 20s. And you'll sort of find that across the lifespan, the intensity of emotions tends to dwindle. Emotions serve a critical role, which we'll discuss more later as well. Okay, so I mentioned earlier that people talk about money as the be-all, end-all of why people do what they do.
I mean, money right now is how you can, live. Okay. So money in a way has become oxygen for people. Money has become the survival mechanism for us to transfer energy and store value, right? And the more of it that you have, the more power that you exert onto the world, right? And how can you, somebody who right now, might be broke, who doesn't have access to a lot of money, how can you make money? The best way to do it is to be seen as an expert, okay, to live your purpose, to be a subject matter expert so that you can rise to the top, to be seen as a point of authority so that you are seen as a genius that you are. And once you have the optics and the eyes on you and the authority given away by other people towards you, then you can command the fee, right? Even this guy, Rob Henderson, right? How does he make money? Okay, he is a subject matter expert. He is telling his version of events. He is telling you his findings that he has studied, spent his time researching, and he gets paid for it. Okay. And then once you can collect this money, once you can accumulate wealth, we go one step beyond, to use that wealth to buy private islands, to isolate ourselves from the rest of the world so that we can buy new nations, build kingdoms. That is what we are doing in order for us to survive in the coming wars.
And throughout this course, I'll be making the case that status is an important incentive as well. It's a resource as real as oxygen or water.
Yeah, status is as important as oxygen, okay? Because if you think about it, if you're somebody who, like, you're a popular person at school, right? Like, you have a high status, right? You feel great, right? Because, everybody's your friend, everybody is, acting kindly towards you, and then it creates a safe environment for you to express yourself in, right? Whether if you're somebody who's at school and say you got bullied, you had low status in your school, you were seen as a loser, people see you negatively, people don't want to associate with you, okay? And when you are like that, you feel depressed, okay? You feel like oh, like, I can't be myself in this environment. People don't like me. People hate me, and it's going to cause you a lot of problems, a lot of trouble, a lot of self doubt within yourself. Okay, your self esteem will take a massive hit. That is why social status is important. Okay, so that because it does give you high self esteem, right? Um, Many people say, "Oh, that's just being arrogant or being egotistical." Well, fuck it, well, whatever works, right? Like we're not here to judge, um, you know, methods from working. We're here to say, like, all right, what works? What's the best way for me to live a good life? What's the best way for me to be happy, right? And high status is one way to do it. Okay, so what's the highest status that you can get? Okay, well, the king is the highest status person, right? That is why we are establishing kingdoms, our own kingdoms within our subject matter expertise. And when we crown ourselves kings, okay, it will give us you a massive boost in self-esteem. Okay, it will release a lot of serotonin within your body. You will feel great. You will be happy. You'll be in your life purpose. Okay, and when you're in a position and mind frame like that, it's easy for you to come up with new solutions, creative ideas, genius solutions that the world needs. Right, that is why you are destined to be a leader. That is why you're destined to do something great, because you will be a king. The people that follow you will be brought towards glory, and because you won't be alone, you'll be with 100 other kingdoms all across the world joining forces together. It is only a matter of time before we take over, before we rule the world.
And often people will actually exchange material wealth for status. So an example of this, I read this article a couple of years ago in the New York Times of influencers paying for followers. Why would you do that, right? If money is what makes...
Yeah, because right now, the more followers you have, the more social status is imprinted onto the minds of other people, and the more social status you have, the more people think that you are somebody who's important, and the more important that you feel in the world, the more safer you feel. So a lot of these people just want eyeballs on them because they want to feel safe, because they want to feel like they are important. They are trying to create, a false sense of security for them, right? But it is in their mind real security, right? And because it is real security in their mind, it puts them in a better mood. That is why you see influencers always posting pictures of themselves happy, whether they have anxiety behind the screen, whatever. But those, that fake image that they portray does buy them influence in the world. It does open doors for them. But I don't want you to fake that influence. I don't want you to fake that feeling of security. I want you to establish it in truth. And that truth is determined by you, whatever the thing, things that you find interesting in the world, whatever things that you are good at, right? You need to become the genius within your zone, right? Within the things that you find interesting. And that is how you will determine real authority for yourself. Okay. That is how you showcase authority to other people. That's how you showcase leadership and insight and genius to the world. And once you have that authority, once people see you for the genius that you truly are, right, we go one step beyond by establishing our kingdoms, by consolidating our power.
The world go round. Why would you pay for followers? I guess, you can make the argument, oh, the followers, maybe you could sell something to them. It's an investment. I don't think that's what's...
And the thing is about paying and for followers, right? It's the wrong way to go about it, because if those followers are just bots, okay, if they are not real and they don't believe in what you are saying, what you're doing, then what it means is that, your message is falling on deaf ears. That is why we look for real followers. We look for real people who follow us, who support us. Okay. And even though the numbers might be small, the value of them is immense, right? That is why we care more about finding real people, who really believe and share similar sort of values as us. Okay. Because one real follower is, worth 1,000 times more than a fake follower, right? So that is why, I don't want you to go out there and buy followers. I want you to share your insight onto the world and just let the right people find you. Let the right people choose you, okay, to subscribe to you, to follow you. Because the more real friends that you have, the more real followers that you have, people who really support you, the more valuable your authority will be in the future.
Going on, though, I think there's a lot of investment involved in sort of raising your social prominence up. And follower count is a very sort of visible metric. Also, like displaying your bank account and your money and that kind of thing. It's go shits. Well, I mean, if someone like...
The other thing is, if you buy fake followers, right, and you know that you've paid for fake followers, like inside your soul, you know that you didn't earn what you're getting, right? So we want to build a scenario for you where you feel that every advantage that you get, that every reward that you get from the world, that you have earned it truthfully, and that way it will feel much more authentic to you. That way it will feel much better for you to gain the things that you are getting. Okay, so that when you are living a life of luxury as a king, in your heart, in your soul, you will know that you have earned it. Okay, that is why we are doing it the correct way, not the way of a fake influencer, not buying fake followers.
Post online, here's how much money I have in my bank account. That person would be mocked, right? Laugh at this person. But if you say like, hey, I just got to 1 million followers, everyone, thanks. That actually raises your status even more to sort of post that and to highlight that. There's an example here that I like to give. I had this conversation a few years ago with a lecturer at Yale. He was a non-tenured lecturer, and he told me,
again, just pay attention to the way you just said, oh yeah, this lecturer at Yale. So everybody's heard of Yale as his institution, as a university, and because he is seen to be talking to other lecturers from such a prestigious university, it gives him more legitimacy. Okay, that he is somebody from Oxford, talking to people from Yale. Oh wow, like his friendship circle must be really great. Okay, that he gets to network with all these people from these prestigious institutions. He's leveraging the brand names of these universities in order for him to legitimize what he is saying, in order for him to legitimize his own status, to be perceived as more higher status than you, because you don't know anybody from Yale. It makes you feel like, okay, that this guy knows what he's talking about because he's using these brand names. Okay, again, he's saying a lecturer at Yale. Okay, what subject does he teach? Do you get what I mean? He might be just somebody who literally is like another student at Yale who's not even a bright student. Okay, but just because you hear that brand name, you automatically think of the best case scenario that he is some genius lecturer that he's talking to. He is using these, it's like smoke and mirrors. He's using these brand names in order to legitimize and increase his own status in your mind.
That he received an offer, a tenure track offer at a university somewhere in the Midwest. I want to say it was Indiana. It probably wasn't, so I'll just...
So again, so this university in Indiana in the Midwest, it doesn't have the same reputation as Yale. Okay, so that's why he's like, oh yeah, just some university in Indiana. Again, he's creating social hierarchies in his conversation between what is high status, Oxford and Yale and Harvard, what is low status, oh, Indiana, Midwest University. Again, it is the little tricks that he's pulling over you to increase his own status with the people that he associates with.
I'll just say Indiana. And the job offered more money, it offered tenure, it offered job security, and that's
more money, more job security, more tenure, right? But he didn't take it because it doesn't have the status of Yale, right? Because people perceive status as the ultimate. Again, because would this guy have even mentioned this lecturer if he was just a normal lecturer from Indiana, right? Which isn't as highly ranked as Yale. So he is using the same mechanisms in order for him to establish his own authority.
Kind of the dream job of most academics is to get a tenure track job somewhere. And this person had a non-tenure track, low-paying job at Yale. And I asked him, are you going to take this job? And he said, no, it's tempting, but no. I said, well, why not? And he replied, the name brand of Yale is just too valuable. Like, I'm not going to...
Exactly what I just said, right? So the name brand of Yale is too valuable for him to go somewhere else where he has more money, more security, right? That he's willing to risk and get paid less. Again, I want you to be in a position where, you are getting paid the maximum amount, okay, for the highest status position, which is you as a king, to make the maximum amount of money. Don't be dependent on somebody else's status. Don't try to leech off somebody else's status. You might be somebody who's working at a prestigious company. I mean, I myself, I worked, for some of the top banks in the world, right? Like big brand names like JP Morgan, Barclays, Deloitte, you name it. I've worked at these institutions, right? But I watched some of there. I climbed the corporate ladder in these places, and then when I got to the top, I was like, this is just me being another cog in the machine. Okay, I'm just somebody, building somebody else's life, somebody else's dream, which is why I got disenfranchised, disillusioned with the the life that I was living, which is why I decided to lead a system and form my own solution, to form my own system, so that I can be the owner of it, right? So that my hard work contributes towards my own success, my own destiny. That is what I'm doing, and there are many people who feel similar but don't know what to do. I'm telling you that there is a way out, that there is a way for you to live your dream, but you have to take that risk. Okay, take that risk to become a subject matter expert, to become a point of authority. Crown yourself king, right? Nobody can stop you. That is what we do. We're taking glory ourselves. We are raising armies. We are going to overthrow the ruling establishment.
And so this guy is choosing to live in more economically precarious circumstances simply because it probably impresses people more when he says, I'm a lecturer at Yale, than I'm a junior professor at Indiana University. So
yeah, and that's how it is. You know what I mean? Like, what's the best way for me to impress somebody, right? I remember when I first started working at JP Morgan, I thought like, oh, that's so impressive, man. Like, I'll tell somebody, yeah, like I work at JP Morgan. Over time, but once you understand what goes on in those companies, what's happening, you know that it's just bullshit. Okay, you could be working wherever getting money, but it's just how people perceive you. And once you stop playing that game, you're just better for it, because you are not compromising yourself, you are not lying to yourself, and your soul feels at ease at that point, right? And that is what I want from you. I want you to feel live an easy life. I want you to feel at ease at all times. um that is why I'm telling you to reach the higher position that you can within your own field of your own interests, right? Your own field of genius. Okay, that is why we are becoming subject matter experts. That is why how we are going to rise to the top.
This is one reason why I think that status is so important for human behavior choices. So I mentioned before, status isn't only just one thing. There are two different forms of status. There are two facets here. So there's dominance and there's prestige. Dominance is evolutionarily older. Prestige seems to be mostly most prominent among.
And right now, because we live in the modern world, the prestige statuses are what kind of drives the meta right now. Okay, it is what most people look into. I mean, obviously, dominant statuses like big muscles, the ability to fight is still important, I guess, right? But because most people have most countries have laws in place, most countries have a police system in place in order for you to like, even if you are somebody who you can fight, you look like you can beat people up, how often can you use it? And if you do use it, are you not going to be locked up? That is why it is more important for you to build those prestigious forms of dominance and status, because once you are seen as somebody who has those, it will be more advantageous for you to go out there and make more money. And the more money you have, the more real power you can buy with your wealth.
Among humans, it's more pronounced among humans. You will see some rudimentary elements of prestige among chimpanzees and primates, but in the animal kingdom, dominance is what prevails. Among humans, it's a bit more complicated, as we'll see. So what is dominance? We'll talk about dominance first, the evolutionarily older form of dominance, or status rather. So dominance is associated with narcissism, aggression, disagreeableness. This is in humans specifically. And how dominance works is people instill fear in others through coercion, intimidation.
Yeah, and that is what governments are using. They're using their dominance in order to make you submit, in order for you to stay weak, in order for them to be like, look, if you don't do as I say, right, we'll take away your rights in the world. We'll put you in fucking prison. We'll put you in jail. And that fear of, if you don't pay your taxes, they'll put you in jail. If you do something that's antisocial, they'll put you in jail. They try to use this type of dominance to get you to toe the line in order for them to gain power, so that you do what they want you to do, which is to stay small, to stay weak, to stay obedient.
Being confrontational, sort of either using violence or the threat of violence to get people to do what you want. And so why do dominant individuals obtain status? Because of what they can do to them. This is one way. So they do to them, so they can inflict costs, pain, humiliation, disfigurement, the threat of violence, and so on. And so in response,
And more people are afraid of the threat of violence than anything. But in most cases, it's very rare that real violence escalates in the modern world in Western countries. Most of the time, it is if you, especially if you have prestigious um, status, right? Um, if you have the symbols of prestige, that most people will kind of bend down towards it, right? Because think about it, right? Like if you have a king, if you have a president and he's surrounded by bodyguards, and those bodyguards have the status, that dominant status, right? They have the fighting capabilities, they have guns on them. However, they still bend down to the prestige of the title of president, of the title of king, which is why I want you to go after that. I don't want you to become just a meathead, somebody who is just somebody who is fighting and trying to out alpha somebody else. Okay, become somebody who can literally dismantle somebody just by your title, by your way that you present yourself. So that is why we here at Raw Instinct present ourselves as king, because we take every advantage that we can. We are the de facto rulers because we are smarter than everybody else and winning on all fronts.
To this, people are willing to sort of defer to a dominant individual. But as we'll see, this type of status, this route to social status is unstable and often doesn't work out very well for the dominant individual.
Yeah, like I said, it doesn't work out because it is easy for that type of dominance, for that type of status to explode and implode, and then the real people in charge, the government, will lock you up. They'll throw you into prison. They will put you under their control.
So here's an example. This is a recent example that I just read of what a dominant individual is. So this is Comrade Duch. He was a commandant for the communists in Cambodia, and this is from a book called The Lost Executioner about what occurred in the communist revolution in Cambodia. It wasn't until he returned, he meaning Comrade Duch.
Again, what is this guy even doing? He's just reading and telling you, parts of history, and telling you about status, right? There's many different books that you can read on status. There's many different fields of knowledge that you can pull this information together yourself. Okay, but he is presenting it to you through this lecture. He is presenting it to you in a way that you just have to sit there and shut up and listen, because you're watching on the video, right? So just by watching and listening to what he's saying, that is a form of obedience. That is a form of him presenting his high status as a lecturer, because I studied at Oxford, because I got my PhD at Oxford. I associate with people from Yale. I have this high authority. Now you shut up and listen. And he is, the mechanism of social status is working there, because you're the listener. He's a presenter. He's higher status than you. He's not doing anything smart. He's not doing anything revolutionary. He's not doing anything groundbreaking. You could easily do something like that, okay? But, what's the subject that you would work on? That is up to you, okay? And it comes from your own drive, your own innate, recognition of, what are you drawn towards? What are you good at? What are you interested in, right? And those are the fields, those are the subjects that you need to dive in deeper. And that is what you talk about. That is what your zone of genius is. Okay, that is where you will become a subject matter expert, and that is how you will become somebody who can build authority in those fields. And like Rob Henderson, build authority in those fields and become somebody who is well known in that field. That is how you'll make money. That is how you will rise to the top. That is how people will defer to you and come up to you and ask you questions. Okay, what do I do in this scenario? How do I live life? Okay, what is the best way for me to live and be happy in the world? And that is why you'll be a king, because you have the answers to that. And once you're removed of self-doubt, once you're removed of fears, it will be easy for you to establish authority across the internet, across the world, to get many followers, for you to be seen as a king and build your kingdom. That is what we're about. That's what we're doing. If you understand what is that I'm saying, if you understand what it is that I'm doing, if you want to be part of this, let me know. And we can work together. Okay, but that is it for today. I think it was a great video today. Thank you very much, and I will see you tomorrow.